people of the trance. We talk to the spirit. The spirit come into us. This is our church. The tree, the sky, the breeze, the earth, the flower. And that's how Mother Earth hear our prayers. From the drum, the dance, the trance, people!
Oseo everyone. Today, I just wanted to share with you some background information concerning this powerful movie called The Harder They Fall, which is a modernized version of a fictional American Western movie directed by James Samuel and executive produced by hip-hop pioneer Jay-Z. Now, even though this movie is fictional, most of the characters portrayed in this movie are real people. And this was right up Jay-Z's alley to produce due to his uprising as a child. Jay-Z has mentioned before that his father's love for the Cowboys lifestyle drove him to become a fan of the Dallas Cowboys football team, even though he was born and raised in the state of New York.
I grew up, my pop is really my pop for it, you know.
That's
he
his
he grew up in that era, that era of those guys who, you know, wanted that whole cowboy lifestyle.
Now, before I go any further, I want you to be aware that some of the information that I'll be presenting in this video could potentially spoil the plot of the movie. So if you haven't watched the movie just yet, then I suggest that you pause this video and go watch The Harder They Fall on Netflix. I highly recommend it, and I'll see you again once you've completed it. And by the way, no, this is not a sponsored video. I'm just simply appreciating the great content I watched personally and would love to share more information about it with you now. Now, I can confirm that 8 out of the 13 characters displayed in this movie are real people. Some were outlaws, some were lawmen like sheriffs or mayors, and some were, of course, the real cowboys of the 19th century. Even though mainstream Western films of the 1920s and beyond gave the real Indians minor roles in their films, usually depicting them as comedic characters as a joke, while all of the cowboy roles were given to pale-skinned foreigners to be depicted as such, allowing for the next generations to come to believe that prominent cowboys of America were mainly of pale skin, when that is absolutely not true. The main protagonist of this movie was a famous cowboy by the name of Nat Love, but to some, he was known as Deadwood Dick, being as though he was a consistent rodeo winner of Deadwood, South Dakota. Nathaniel Love was a veteran cowpoke, a professional horse rider, and proficient gunslinger that could track down stampeding cattle and rope wild mustangs with ease. It was said that fear didn't exist in his blood due to his Cherokee heritage by way of his mother and father of Davidson County, Tennessee, where he was born and raised on his family's plantation in June of 1854. Now, it was said that he published his own book in 1907, in which he describes in detail his life as a cowboy. And on page 99 of this book, he describes being shot and wounded and captured by a band of Pima Indians, led by a man named Yellow Dog. He describes the Pima Indians as being, quote, composed largely of half-breeds and people of colored blood that eventually nursed him back to health. He shares that these Pima Indians respected his Indian heritage so much that they promised him 100 ponies in return if he joins the tribe and marry Yellow Dog's daughter. But after a month in captivity, he steals a pony and escapes 100 miles west in 12 hours. The main antagonist of this movie was a famous outlaw named Rufus Buck. Buck lived a rather short life due to his uprising as the leader of the Rufus Buck Gang of Oklahoma. Buck was born to two Creek Indian parents, and for this reason alone, it was said by Harvard Magazine that, quote, he dreamed that his gang spree would trigger an Indian uprising that would expel the illegal white majority and reclaim the whole territory for its native people, end quote. To many people, they were heroes, but the Rufus Buck Gang's violent redemption campaign abruptly ended after a total of 13 days, when all members were finally caught, tried, and hanged. Rufus Buck was living fast and died young, witnessing his last afternoon at just 18 years old in Fort Smith, Arkansas on June 1st, 1896. The Harder They Fall also portrays another real-life pioneer named Jim Beckwourth in the movie, but officially known as James Pearson Beckwourth of Frederick County, Virginia. He was known as a mountaineer and a professionally skilled fighter, which earned him the nickname Bloody Arm, and he made his living as a fur trader, but was apprenticed as a blacksmith during his earlier years of life. He was born in April of 1798 to an American Indian mother and a white father. Rumor says that his father was his slave master that later freed him from slavery during his childhood in 1824. But what's not a rumor was the fact that he became the chief of the Crow Nation of Indians just a few years later, while respectively leading the Dog Clan for many years. He also married the daughter of another Crow chief prior to leaving her behind in order to volunteer with the United States Army to fight in the Second Seminole War in Florida in 1837. He details more about his life in his book, which was published nearly 20 years later in 1856, called The Life and Adventures of James P. Beckwourth, Mountaineer, Scout, and Pioneer, and Chief of the Crow Nation of Indians. Two other characters portrayed in this movie carry a rich history when it comes to the American West of the 19th century. So in this collaborative effort to present more information concerning this matter, I asked Texas' very own Chief Topcatz to join me in presenting their background stories to you.
The gold I got here goes to just on it.
Contrary to popular belief, slavery didn't arrive in Texas until 1822 with Moses Austin, succeeded by his son Stephen F. Austin, who would grant land to new settlers. They would become known as the Old 300. They would bribe and lobby politicians for legal slavery in Texas. It would be short-lived, as in 1829, Mexico's first black president, Vicente Guerrero, would outlaw slavery. A year later, it would be murdered. The new laws would attract many migrations to the state of Texas, and in 1836, the Battle of the Alamo. June 19, 1865, Galveston, Texas Major General Gordon Granger of the Union Army announced General Order No. 3. Slavery in the state of Texas had officially come to an end. After the Civil War, there was a growing demand for beef in the East. They would look to Texas for remedy. This would produce the cattle boom from Texas into Kansas. Famous Indian trails would blaze the path, such as the Chisholm Trail. One of the towns along the trail is an old Indian town, Pecos, Texas. It would produce the world's first rodeo on July the 4th, 1883. Rodeos were the Cowboys' Olympics. Skilled cattlemen would compete for bragging rights. Today, rodeo is the official sport of Texas. December the 5th, 1870, Willie Pickett was born. The second of 13 children to Thomas Jefferson Pickett and Miss Janie Mary Gilbert. The family were Cherokee Indians. From a small town in central Texas at the age of 5, Bill would develop the love for the culture. While working as a rancher, he developed a skill that would take him across the country in its American history, bulldogs. Cattlemen would steal the cattle by using bulldogs to trap them. Bill noticed the bulldogs would bite down on the upper lip of the bull, a technique that Bill would master as he would take the bull down by the steers. At the age of 18, he and his brothers would establish the Pickett Brothers, Bronco Busters, and Rough Riders Association. Everything cowboy, they had it. The cowboy lifestyle crossed them paths with rancher Lee Moore, who witnessed Bill's daredevil stunts. He would begin to manage Bill and also bring his brothers along. Over time, the relationship would come to an end over disputes of business and money. In 1903, he met a hustler's hustler, Dave McClure, aka Mr. Cowboy. The two would take the rodeo world by storm cross country. Mr. Cowboy coined Bill the name the Dusky Demon. March 1905, Fort Worth, Texas. At the North Central Texas Cattle and Railroad Center, every cowboy that was somebody would be there. He would put on the performance of his life. He would get a standing ovation from the crowd. One of the witnesses there to see the phenomenon was a gentleman from Bliss, Oklahoma, who took notice, Colonel Zach Miller, owner of the 101 Ranch Wild Wild West show. Bill would join the ranks of Buffalo Bill Cody, Tom Mix, Will Rogers, and others. He would tour the world in even motion pictures. The legendary cowboy days would come to an end. April 2nd, 1932. He would die from head injuries after being kicked by a horse. His legacy lives on today, and the horse of cowboys and rodeos all over. Willie Bill Pickett, aka Dusky Demon, Cherokee cowboy, legend of the Wild Wild West. 19th century. We close the chapter in American history of immigration, naturalization, colonialism, government, domestic enslavement, and wars, which ushered in the Second Great Awakening, Industrial Revolution, and U.S. expansion from the 13 colonies into the ancient ancestral lands of the Southeast Indians. The fighting spirit, music, fishing, barbecue, soul food, cattle, livestock, and agriculture would make up the ingredients that would birth the new era of Indians, the cowboys. From 1811 Creek Civil Wars through the Seminole Wars that were leading to the 1829 Gold Rush in Georgia that were leading to the 1830 Indian Removal Act, resulting in the displacement of the Southeast Indian tribes. The U.S. would establish themselves in the West through military force and Indian scouts, attracted by their knowledge of the land, map making, scouting, building, interpreting. These would all serve purpose across the Mississippi and what would become known as Indian Territory, aka the Wild Wild West. During the Civil War, the Militia Act of 1862 would create the USCT, United States Colored Troops. After the war, the military would close the program. And on July the 28th, 1866, the Army Reorganization Act passed. 6 units, 2 cavalry, 4 infantry regiments would form the legendary Buffalo Soldiers. The 10th Cavalry was stationed in the largest military base in Texas, Fort Concho. Racial tensions were at an all-time high in America, and there was no exception to Texas. A heated altercation breaks out in town between the Ku Klux Klan and the Buffalo Soldiers. Gunfire was exchanged, and when the smoke cleared, understanding his fate, the first sergeant, Buffalo Soldier, Civil War veteran, George Goldsby, aka William Scott, vanished, leaving behind an indigenous wife of Cherokee heritage, Mrs. Ellen Lynch, and their son Crawford Goldsby, aka Cherokee Bill, born February 8, 1876, at Fort Concho in San Angelo, Texas, arguably the most famous Indian outlaw in the cowboy era. Handsome, ambitious, charismatic, ladies' man with one of the quickest hands in the West. Raised in the ways of Cherokee warriors and Buffalo Soldier military genius, he was a superb shot from a distance and by horseback. His outlaw lifestyle was crossing paths with a Cherokee Indian who served as an ex-U.S. Marshal Scout, William Tuttle, aka the Cherokee Kid, Bill Cook, leader of the notorious Cook Gang. He and his brother Jim, Skeeter, Jess Snyder, William Ferris, Curtis Dayson, Elmer Lucas, aka Chicken, Jim French, George Sanders, Lon Gordon, Henry Munson, Sam McWilliams, aka Verdigris Kid, and Cherokee Bill. From petty crimes to bank and train robberies will lead lawmen and scouts on their trails. November the 9th, 1894, Cherokee Bill, trigger happy ways would go too far. During the store robbery, Bill executed Ernest Miller, an eyewitness to the stick-up. With hired Indian scouts and trackers, Cherokee criminal ways, popularity, and love from the community would keep him elusive. Laying low with family and female friends, his luck would come to an end. He was sentenced to be hanged by Judge Parker, March 17, 1896. At the age of 20, Bill approached the gallows. What a good day to die. Through the raging crowd, he spotted his mother. You ought to not be here. And his Cherokee mother replied, I go wherever you go. At 2:13 p.m., he dropped through the gallows. Crawford Goldsby, AKA Cherokee Bill, Cherokee Cowboy, legend of the Wild Wild West.
We are the people of the trance. We talk to the spirit. The spirit come into us. This is our church. The tree, the sky, the breeze, the earth, the flower. And that's how Mother Earth hear our prayers from the drum, the